Hello, Brad here, just to say we're super proud that the Friday 5pm podcast is sponsored by the Malt Miller, the UK's best home brew store.
We use the Malt Miller for all of our homebrew experiments, as well as tapping them up for advice and binging on their awesome YouTube channel all the time.
That's why whenever we release a homebrew video, we put a recipe kit live on the Malt Miller, so you can brew with the exact same amazing ingredients that we did. The same ingredients used by pro brewers.
So alongside the Malt Miller's nitro-flushed hops, cold-stored yeast and milled-to-order malts, you can pick up recipe kits for our 5 Points Best Bitter, Russian River West Coast IPA, and now the fastest beer in the world, a hazy session IPA that goes from grain to glass in less than 48 hours.
Sign up to their newsletter at tinyurl.com/Malt Miller to get 5% off your first order. With the Malt Miller's amazing customer service and Johnny's 48-hour recipe, you could order the ingredients on a Monday and be drinking the beer by the weekend.
Speaking of which, it's Friday.
It's 5pm.
So enjoy this week's Friday 5pm podcast. It's Friday, it's 5pm, and sadly for us, but definitely not sadly for him, Brad is currently, well, as far as I can tell from the Instagram he put on our channel, without telling me, he's at a campsite somewhere near Stonehenge. Now, I think I can confirm he was not involved in the Just Stop Oil protest. But he is sticking around to go to Stonehenge because he is going to be enjoying the Solstice. And if you remember our podcast last year about his escapades there and his scrape with the Hare Krishnas, we should expect some pretty exciting stories in the podcast next week. But he's not joining us for this week's episode. He's not going to be able to derail my pitch for Love and Beer Festival, which is happening on the 14th of September. Tickets are now on sale. The daytime session is selling very well, so if you're intending to come to that one, hit the link in the podcast description because it probably will sell out before the evening one. And there are still some day tickets as well. Full day tickets. Should you be looking to come for the entire thing. So do check that out as well. We're on the verge of unveiling who's going to be brewing the beers. We're going to be doing 4 collaborations. We've got at least another 6 of breweries teaming up, all breweries that we featured on the channel recently in the last sort of year or so, but also a couple of people from further back. And they're all going to be collaborating together to make some exceptional beers to complete that list. So we'll be announcing that soon, as well as lots more homebrew deets that have been organised by the wonderful Malt Miller. So I guess you're asking, am I going to be doing another edition of Just a Minute, or have I scraped together some kind of glorious guest star for this week's episode? And I'm happy to say that in my panic yesterday when I realised Brad was in a field, I went to my Patreon forum and said, guys, who do you want to hear from, or do you just want to hear me waffle for half an hour? The answer was very much not the latter. It was the former. And we had quite a few interesting ideas thrown our way, including me impersonating Bradley, which would not have gone well. But I have managed to find somebody with hair equally as resplendent and somebody equally as relevant to beer, which is Chris.
Hello.
From Planet Beer TV. How are we doing?
Happy Friday, Johnny. Thanks for having me on.
Well, yeah, thanks for jumping in at the last minute.
Pleasure. I mean, like you say, I've got the hair for it, so let's go. Hopefully I can do Brad justice.
That's all. Now, whenever I replace Brad, I'm going to have to be like, right, who's got hair at least past their ears?
Yeah.
And maybe knows something about beer. I don't know. Well, yeah, so thank you for coming on. It's great. You know, we've been talking behind the scenes about doing collaboration for quite a while, and I haven't quite got my arse in gear in terms of that, but I thought this would be a nice opportunity to collaborate on a pod.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a lot of fun. Like I say, we teed up the collab between you and Planet Beer, our Christmas video, and we were hoping that obviously we get something in the diary for summer, but I think we've both worked out that we're just really busy and life is very busy. And obviously now you're in the full swing of Love and Beer Part 2. And I mean, we'll no doubt get something in the diary at some point, but until then, this'll make it so that we didn't lie to anyone that we were going to do some form of collaboration with the Craft Beer channel.
Right, yes. Are you worried that you're not going to deliver on your Christmas video?
Absolutely, yeah. Always the concern. Halfway through the year and thinking, oh, God.
I almost, with the Craft Beer channel, make promises in videos and podcasts because that does light a fire under you to actually get it done. otherwise things just sit on the back burner.
Yes, so it was it, not to get too pretentious this early on, but was it Oscar Wilde or something that said something about always do sober what you say you'll do when drunk because it'll teach you to keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
And
it could be Oscar Wilde.
I think it must be.
Could be.
Probably is.
Yeah.
Or Ernest Hemingway, maybe.
Somebody who drank a lot but knew what they were doing. Welcome to the show. This is an exciting opportunity to talk with another YouTuber, because despite the fact that we've been on YouTube for now 11 years, we don't actually hang out with that many YouTubers. So it'd be great to hear where did Planet Beer TV come from, and how's starting a channel been in, was it 2020? You began in 2020?
Yeah, kind of 2022 was the big kickoff year, really. It essentially came from lockdown and watching your channel. Like, obviously there's a lot of I was getting into beer. I knew Paul already because he'd just opened up a bottle shop, and I'd worked with him prior to that as well. And we essentially just became beer buddies, and we both watched Craft Beer Channel. And obviously I've got a background in filmmaking. I'm essentially an editor, a video editor by trade. So I was like, yeah, man, I'd like to do something like they do it. But I think perhaps we're looking at perhaps filling in a gap that is for people that are in our position, where perhaps starting the journey of craft beer. Obviously, you guys have been at it; you're hardened veterans. And it's like, yeah,
about right,
yeah. We were just thinking, well, it would be nice to try something where a bit more entry level content for people, and they can come along with us as we learn more, and hopefully the content should then grow and grow from there. Essentially that's how it kind of all came about. We managed to land Verdant as our first big one, which is perhaps peaking too soon, maybe, because I'd love to go back and ask a load more questions. Not that that's ever really off the cards, but yeah. And then we pretty much knew that Verdant was going to be the one that had kick-started, because that was my favourite brewery. So I was like, if we can land those and get a couple of nice videos out from that, we should have impetus on the channel. And sure enough, we did. It's kind of just gone from there, really.
Did you have any background in sort of YouTube filmmaking or production, or it was all other stuff?
Absolutely none. No, nothing with YouTube. That's very much something that I was learning. I've learned as I've gone on, and obviously I've reached out to you guys fairly early on, and you were kind enough to give us some hints and tips. And I think that was all. It was really fascinating stuff, because I think, especially coming from like the traditional agency background that I'm from, YouTube kind of dismisses all the rules that you learn within that about like jump cuts and, essentially the YouTube DIY method of filmmaking is it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be good content that's going to serve somebody some sort of purpose. So yeah, that was a bit of an experience to start with, because I was spending too much time just on single videos, just trying to make them as good as they possibly could be through the lens of a more traditional thing, a more traditional medium, as though it was going to be on TV or whatever. But then ultimately, as you do it, you just think, man, that's time consuming. I've got an actual job that I've got to do in the meantime. I've got a young daughter. I don't have time to do that for everything if I'm going to be getting a channel off the ground. So yeah, you end up embracing the madness of it all, the kind of DIY madness of filmmaking with YouTube. Is that what you found as well?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of had almost the reverse of that, I guess, to some extent. We started with very basic videos and also not a lot of knowledge. Although we had lots of equipment, because that was in our office at Jamie Oliver's at the start, and we were cranking out 2 videos a week, because that's what the beer reviewers that I was watching when we started were doing. Simon Real Ale Guide still does 2 a day. It's just the volume of content that's being put out is incredible, and it's definitely a model that really works. He still monthly gets more views than us, and so we sort of started off trying to do that, but we found it wasn't very fulfilling for us, and I don't think as fulfilling for our audience as we wanted it to be, especially because when we came into this, our idea was we wanted to get out of the bedroom or the kitchen or the garage, wherever it was that these almost exclusively men were reviewing beer. And that wasn't possible to do and release two videos a week. So I guess that's where we aligned. We were like, we had other jobs at the time. That's not true anymore. It's full time for me and mostly for Brad. And yeah, so we sort of decided to do less and do better, which is almost the opposite of what, certainly at the start, I think YouTube tells you to do, and probably you do need to do. And so, that's why we've eventually moved into sort of feature-length documentaries and stuff like that. And also, I think we're just better at it. We'll talk about this week's video later, but and Brad disagrees with me on this, to be fair, but I don't think we're particularly good at playing the YouTube game. And when we try to, often it just doesn't perform, I think, because we're appealing to... I think we've built this audience of people that want, really well-researched, involved, often quite scripted content that's going to be educational but also entertaining, whereas I don't know how much people have learned from this week's video.
Yeah,
personally, I think that's the issue.
It's a great point, because I think when we're really getting into it, that kind of element of I was trying the whole retention editing style, where it's just like jump cuts, cutting out words that don't need to be there rather than doing an extra take or whatever. And you end up making this kind of weird ADHD sort of level of video. And it's like, it was all right. And I think it was fine for some people, but I think there's definitely an element of initially, especially with like the Verdant videos and the stuff that we're coming out with, that wasn't really the demographic or the audience that watched the videos. So yeah, now I've been able to sort of embrace more the aspect of, it's fine, then I don't need to do all this chopping up and be scared that someone's going to just stop watching about halfway through or whatever. I mean, when you look at the retention stats on your films, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but that's always, for me, 20% retention is that's probably a good thing. But I know that there's like these YouTube grifters that you find out on in the algorithm who are trying to teach you how to grow your channels and stuff, and they're like, it needs to be 60% at least retention. I'm like, for a 30-minute video or something, that's impossible.
It's never going to happen. No. I doubt even Netflix has that.
Yeah, it's precisely.
It's a different game that we play, and the best way to make money on YouTube is, I think, to be a YouTube coach.
Yeah,
it's just there's so much opportunity and information out there. All of it contradicts, and most of it was nonsense to start with. And I don't pay any attention to any of them unless they're talking, the technical side. As we're looking at A/B testing of thumbnails, which has just come out, visual and sound stuff. Then I'll listen to those folks. But when it comes to, the advice from YouTube has always been, don't play to the algorithm, play to the person.
Yeah.
Which is such more helpful advice, because I mean that's the golden rule of advertising, of filmmaking, anything. It's knowing who your audience is and putting the right thing out there.
Yeah, I mean that's it. If you're hitting a certain demographic or a certain audience, and YouTube knows then where to put that video to that audience, that's going to work better than constantly trying to aim for a ever shifting algorithm. That's yeah.
And it was
absolutely.
It's a real, what's the word? Sort of eureka moment for me, because we get really quite good click-through rates on our videos, and yet we felt like YouTube was ignoring that and wasn't serving it to other people. But actually, I think that's, rather than the algorithm fucking us over, it's actually the opposite. It's the algorithm's doing a good job and it's putting it to the right people, but there aren't that many people that want to watch 25 minutes of us digging into burnt mill beers.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way with some of the stuff that we do, like the recent one that we've done, the Heady Topper video. I mean, we keep trying to sort of, I suppose, we're more aware now because we started doing these hops in focus videos where we just have a look at a different hop and kind of use a couple of drinking examples to kind of try and pick out some of the key characteristics of it. And we found that's led to a bigger audience in America. We've had more viewers watching from America, and it's nice to see and read some of the comments that say that it's a helpful repository for home brewers and stuff.
Yeah.
So we were like, well, we should try and do stuff that kind of caters more to the American audience. So we did like a UK versus US beers one. And then also recently we did our first Heady Topper kind of video because we managed to get hold of it for the first time. And again, even though it got like what I think is a sick thumbnail, it kind of just peaks at a few hundred views, and then everything from then on is just, it's slow and incremental. Mm-hmm. I have no idea what that's all in aid of, but I guess sometimes they just don't land as you expect.
Oh yeah, 100%. We can, without getting too pretentious again, there's I can't remember who said it either, but when I was learning to be a journalist, we got all these books that we had to read when I started my masters, and one of these books, there was just this saying that at the time I was like, that's nonsense, and it was something like, if you're ever truly happy with a paragraph, strike it out. And that's because basically if you're really happy with a paragraph, it means you've written it for yourself. Yeah. You're like, that's smart, that is exactly what I'd want to read, and that's usually a mistake. And I think sometimes, we've made thumbnails that we think are absolutely amazing, and it's just done nothing. And one time, in fact, so we did a video, we have our What Even Is series where we dig into what style is and the history, and we did the Hefeweizen one, not particularly popular style, outside of maybe Schneider Weiss Tap 5, there is not a hype Weiss beer out there. But it's done over 100,000 views now, and that week Brad was away, so I made the thumbnail, and the click-through rate is just insane on it. And I literally just put the words "not cool" on top of a bottle of Hefeweizen, and I guess just the messaging was just so strong that people were like, yeah, I guess I'll click that.
Yeah.
Sometimes something you cobble together works better than something you spend hours on.
It's a strange one, and I like the thumbnail for the video you've done this week. I thought that was colourful, stands out.
Well, wait, which one were you served? Because we used A/B testing.
Ooh, A/B testing. This is new to me. I didn't know this. I didn't know you could do this.
So now, it depends. I don't know whether it's been rolled out to every channel now, but you can now upload 3 different thumbs, and YouTube will trial it and then let you know which is the most successful and use that.
Oh.
So
I've got the one where you're both in the middle, and then you've got Jason Momoa off to the left and Post Malone off to the right.
And what's the text in the middle?
You and Brad.
So the text?
Yes, I believe. Yeah, the text's in the middle. A-list celebrity beer commercials.
Okay, so there was another version that was called Beer Geeks React, and some other things we're trying out to use different words to see if anything helps.
Maybe the A/B testing will come along once we've finally monetized the channel. That could be a thing.
This summer, I'm going to be hosting talks at the Manchester, Bristol and London craft beer festivals, giving festival goers the chance to attend tutored tastings, rare beer pours, meet the brewers and even guided tours of the bars. These 3 festivals are the highlights of my events calendar, featuring some of the world's best breweries with delicious restaurant pop-ups, great music and a really welcoming party atmosphere. It's the 3rd year I've been hosting the We Are Beer Tastings table, but for the first time I'm delighted to offer all of our listeners, viewers and Patreons £5 off a ticket when you use the code CBC5. Just hit the link in the description to buy. See you there. Yeah, well, so tell readers about that, listeners, because that's something that wasn't... I mean, it was much easier to get monetized when we started over a decade ago.
Yeah, so now it's essentially 1,000 subscribers, which we've clicked that. That's all good. And then you need 4,000 watch hours over the space of a year. Now, the first year that you have essentially comes free, because after that first year, your hours start dropping off, if that makes sense. It's like a constant rolling time window. So, for instance, we'll start losing any watch hours that we had from May last year, 2023. So, annoyingly, we couldn't quite manage to hit the 4,000 in that first year. Otherwise, it could have, we could be well on our way. So we've had a few slips where we've noticed like some of the Verdant content back in January, because we released that in January 2023, the Verdant watch hours, of which there's thousands of watch hours on those videos, we've pretty much lost those, the core bulk of those from January. So it can be a bit fiddly, but at that point, it's just about, that's when you've got to be consistent. You've just got to keep hitting your videos out. We try and aim for one a week. We don't always manage that. So it's like one every couple of weeks. So once we get there, I'm sure it will all be worth it. Or maybe we'll,
all the pennies you earn.
Yeah, it's a bit like, oh, it's 60p. Great.
Yeah.
But no, to be fair, I've heard a few things about it, and I know that we've talked about it briefly before, that the core monetization aspects of YouTube, realistically, it isn't actually the ad spend stuff. It isn't the ad revenue. It's through the other channels. So sponsorship, for instance, like you guys have got Malt Miller and the rest. And we've got Mosaic Board Printers, like a beer map producing company, who sponsor our podcast, the Fantasy Beer Name podcast. So we set up a little deal with them, and that's probably more money than we'll make just doing that than probably a year of YouTube ad spend. I guess we'll find out once we finally monetize. But yes,
well,
we don't do it for money. You know, we've got good jobs. It's just, it'd be nice for it to kind of pay for itself a little bit when it comes to the trips away. We really want to do some stuff abroad. We want to go over to New England, kind of following your footsteps there when you went over. So yeah, that's on the horizon, but we've just got to wait until we can pay for it a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on. So next week's video is going to be what I learned from 10 blind taste tests. So digging into sort of what you learn when you don't really know what you're actually drinking. And part of that is, one of those things that I learned is that going viral is both amazing and terrible.
Yeah.
Because we had three of those Beer Geek blind taste tests went, one of them went fully viral. It's at about 700,000 views, but you know, the money that we earn from that is still negligible.
Yeah.
And the money that we earn through advertising on YouTube is still nothing. That's why we have the Patreon, and why we love our Patreons, because we earn nearly 4 times as much through Patreon than we do through YouTube advertising.
Nice.
YouTube advertising for channels of our scale, and you know, without being different people with a different channel doing very different content. We're never going to be huge YouTube stars, and I don't think that was ever an ambition or a dream, but it was something we thought could happen, you know. And now we're aware that never is, you know. So it's always going to be about finding those other revenue streams.
No, that's it. That's something which is like, you know, when I see people at work or some friends and they're like, oh yeah, man, soon, once that monetizes, you'll be making money. Like, people do really well on YouTube. I'm like, not in this niche. This is a pretty limited niche. You know, we're not like Mr. Beast or Beard Meets Food or anything like that. It's a bit more, but I mean, highbrow.
You know, those. Well, yeah. What are you saying about Mr. Beast? I mean, the man's an idiot. I mean, those Beer Geek blind taste tests, we had 1.4 million views across the 3 ones that went viral. We earned £6,000 in advertising, and that's 2 years.
Yeah. Okay.
So, you know, it's just not a sustainable model for anybody.
It's a trickle rather than a
yeah. Not that £6,000 isn't great, but when there's 2 of you and it's across 3 years, that's £1,000 a year that video's earned you.
Yeah.
Which you then get taxed on, and also spend money on all the beer. So there we go. But anyway, let's talk about beer. So this last video, was it Heady Topper for the first time? Was that
for the first time
you ever had
for me? Paul's already had it before. He managed to get hold of it last year, and also some Focal Banger that he had last year. We both did that one, and we did that in a US versus UK video, and that was just excellent. You know, Focal Banger, what a beer! And yeah, this time we managed to source some Heady, and I was like, well, we may as well do a video on, you know, hype beers. It seems like one of those things
20 quid on a beer.
Yeah, precisely.
Get content, yeah.
And And it's like one of those which seems, especially if you're a beer YouTuber, it's one of the rites of passage. For instance, like the Orval videos as well. We still haven't done one of those. Still aging away some Orval, but it seems to be like one of the. It's a rite of passage, isn't it? You've got to do a bit of content on one of those beers. So yeah, heady. Focused on that one. It was much more West Coast than I was expecting. I really wasn't I suppose because people say that it is the New England, the first New England double IPA. I suppose it's only really New England because of where it came from, and it was one of the ones where it was kicking off a certain style, this unpasteurized hazy beer. But yeah, in terms of the taste of it, I was like, God damn, this is like drinking a really good Westie.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, had a lot of time for that.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting one because it is the original hazy IPA, New England IPA, and that was the model for everybody else. But where New England IPAs ended up is entirely different.
Yeah.
So, as far as I'm aware, there is no wheat or oats in Heady Topper. The haze is literally from the dry hop. It is. I think when we were there, I think it said 60 IBU, so more West Coast than most West Coasts, and is very. It's got savoury notes on the aroma as well, which you'd never find in, say, a Treehouse or Trillium can get a little bit skunky, but you never find that in Treehouse sort of beers or any of the folk that we now consider defining that style. So it's always really fun. Actually, I remember Hop City 2016, maybe a little bit earlier. I think it was the first one, but John Kimmick came to that event and he poured Heady Topper and weirdly his Saison, which everyone was a bit like, huh? But everybody was drinking Heady Topper and really not enjoying it because our palates were already so used to 30 to 40 IBUs in our IPAs. People were just like, it's just too bitter. Yeah. Particularly on that day where you wouldn't have had anything bitter. Everything would have been, pretty high FGs and really low IBUs. Everyone's like, God, it's clawing at my palate.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting because I think if I'd have had Heady Topper at the start of this kind of YouTube channel thing, when I really was just every time, just hazy, verdant, Daya, I'll have all of it, all the fruity, juicy IPAs. If I'd have had it then, I probably would have thought, this isn't for me. But I think it's just because for the last 2 years, it's pretty much been a relentless haze fest of just constant, fruity, hoppy beers, that it's actually welcome now. My palate is now constantly looking out for the next, bitter, West Coasty style beer that can scratch that itch. And it was quite nice to actually have that and it kind of be totally different to what I was expecting it to be on the first sip. But that said, I'm still not going to be paying up to £20 a can on getting that regularly. it's just not happening.
I mean, all respect to Alchemist, you don't need to now because we've got, in particular, actually our Burnt Mill video, what's it called? Golden Vistas smelled very, very tropical and fruity, but was that, it had a tiny bit of oats, I think, just to ensure stability of the haze, but was otherwise very much a kind of Heady Topper or Vocal Banger inspired beer.
Yeah, love a Burnt Mill and Elusive as well. I mean, whenever Oregon Trail's out, it's a must purchase.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I really enjoyed the video, and I enjoyed the very scientific can versus glass approach.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on that? Because I found it quite interesting.
Well, it's nonsense, really. Never drink from the can. It's the theory that John has put on his YouTube channel, and I think it was on the can for a while, is basically that if you pour it into the glass, the volatiles escape, and O2 is getting to the beer for the first time and all this kind of stuff, which is all scientifically perfectly valid, but it doesn't look at the flip side of it, which is that you need those oils, those aromatic oils, those essential oils to come out of suspension for you to taste them. So ideally it would go into a glass and then you put your face in the glass and you get all of that. Otherwise all you're getting is the retronasal, so what you get when you swallow after drinking some heady, which I don't think is the full experience for me.
No.
and the O2 pickup is going to be minimal unless you're nursing it for an hour. So I think John prefers it that way, and is totally at liberty to put that on his cans if that's how he wants people to enjoy it. But I'm not sure it really stands up to any kind of scrutiny.
No, yeah, because me and Paul said off camera, it didn't actually make it into the video in the end, but so much of, although we both said in the video, and I think to a degree I still sort of do, I preferred it from the can. And I think it was just that it was the mouthfeel aspect. It was like bombarding me with some carbonated hop juice, and I was like, this is great. But so much of your taste is actually made up from what you can smell. So surely if you pour it into the glass, you should technically be able to taste it better because you can smell it. I don't know. Yeah. There seems to be some counterintuitive logic there.
Yeah, 100% you will. And yeah, I just think, texture-wise, it is interesting because, I drink quite a lot from cans and from bottles because there's something really satisfying about doing that. And I think that particularly with the can, the way it washes over your palate is different because with a glass, you're tempted to take a sip.
Yeah.
With a can, that's not really possible. You've got that little lip that means you have to, chuck it in.
Shovel it in.
Yeah, it does create a different texture. So, yeah, I'd never say that John is wrong or that you shouldn't drink from a can. But what I would say is that from a scientific standpoint and from analysing a beer standpoint, you're much better off putting it in the glass. So yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, when I was watching that video and you said the texture thing, and I was like, yeah, I hadn't really considered that as a reason why drinking from the can be better. But yeah, I think it is that literally the mechanics of it means you coat your palate a bit better.
Yeah, that said though, I still, even if I have a crispy boy on a Friday afternoon, I'm always pouring it into a glass. I don't tend to drink it from a can, even then. So I don't know, but maybe that's just because I'm so civilized now. I just pour it into these Allegra glasses, and away we go. I've got really into pouring beer into glasses again. Like I used to drink quite a lot because I'd finish work, I'd reach into the brew fridge that's next to me and grab something and just drink it there and then on a Thursday or a Friday. But now I've got some really nice glassware recently, like some great sort of Vili Becces and stuff like that, and our own glassware as well. And I've really enjoyed picking the right glass for the right beer, which I never used to be into. Yeah.
And we even did a video a couple of months ago where we said, you know what, just get a stemless wine glass. It's great for everything. But if you've got the space in your studio, get all the right glassware. And, a lager from a Vili is just unbeatable.
My wife would not want to hear that advice. Yeah, no, I've got a lot of glassware at the moment. But it tends to be like glasses that just look nice as well. It's not always about drinking the ones that are probably the most correct for it. But I think you were right in the video where you're like, technically, the right beer for the right glass for the beer is the one that you're drinking it from, because it works, doesn't it? As long as it's not killing the beer off.
Probably for a reason.
Yeah. One thing I did get from you guys as well, I think it was when you did the Budvar stuff, was hard pouring a lager. That was a game changer to some degree. It was something I enjoyed doing a lot. Scrack it off, just get it in, turn it immediately upside down on top of the glass and let it go.
Yeah, you gotta get a decent, like whatever glass you have, it's got to have a decent head on the top of it for sure, and to knock out a little bit of carbonation, particularly with those beers. Yeah, right. Anyway, well, we should stick to some of the format of this world famous podcast. We actually, it was a couple of weeks ago, we hit our highest ranking, like 26 in food and drink in the UK.
Wow.
And I was showing off about it, and then somebody told me that the way that they calculate that, it's not actual listens, it's change in listens.
Oh, okay.
So basically we didn't do a podcast, and then the next week we did. And then
it was a surge. Ranking.
Yeah, so that felt great. Anyway, so yeah, our video this week was a Beer Geeks React, depending on which thumbnail you got. Around the brief to Brad was A-list celebrities, and I think he did pretty well with that brief. I don't know whether Mads is A-list. I think Brad's A-list is slightly different to everybody else's.
Yeah, I think he is.
You reckon?
Yeah,
you give him that?
I think he's a thinking man's A-lister.
Right. Okay.
I'd say. So
Brad will take that.
Yeah. The one thing that's great in those in the Reacts videos is just Brad's giddy excitement, and then you're almost just, it's not deadpan, maybe dadpan.
Dadpan. Well, yeah, there was somebody in the comments saying that I had a dad vibe, which
you're not pouring water on
how
it.
I'd respond to that.
It's like you're not pouring cold water on his enthusiasm, but you kind of just bringing a bit of levity in there.
I'm treading a line, I think, sometimes. I mean, there are some bits that I had to edit out.
Oh, really?
I've probably been a bit too deadpan. I think, I mean, I have a marketing background, and I'm very particular about how I think beer should be talked about. And a lot of them don't really hit the mark on any of that. But that said, even when it's just pure plagiarism, like the Bud Light Seltzer one was, when it's done well, there's no way of arguing that isn't going to stay in people's minds. And next time they see a Bud Light Seltzer Mango, Bud Light Mango set, I don't know what. One of the most cynical bits of branding ever. Just shove Bud Light on it, and then it will sell better. Probably right. We'll probably have that drink next time they see it, because Post Malone. If there was an Oscars for advertising, he smashes it.
Yeah. I mean, Brad was right when he said you won't really recognise him. He didn't look anything like I remembered him last looking when I saw him in the advert. I was like, oh, okay. He still looks like he's come out of prison, but yeah, good acting chops.
Yeah, apparently so. So I'm looking forward to his inevitable turn from music to acting. It seems to be what everybody does now. Be an interesting twist on A Star Is Born if it's Post Malone, but I'll be here for it. Yeah, what did you think of the adverts that we featured? Any of those really hit home for you?
So I did actually like the Post Malone one, but I've never seen Inside Out, the Pixar film. So when you were mentioning it was pretty much just a blatant rip off of that, as I hadn't seen that before. I'm sure that'll change when my daughter gets it on Disney Plus or something. But because I hadn't seen that, I was like, this is a pretty cool concept, and it's all very well done, very well put together. But then you're like, it's pretty much just Inside Out. I was like, okay, maybe I need to watch that and then find out. But no, that was good. I mean, the Jason Momoa one was just ridiculous, but I did like that from I liked the angle of that one. Just, the I'm Irish sort of thing. It plays into that, everyone is what
Irish.
Brad
does every time we do content about Irish beer. It's like, Brad, I'm Irish, but he's also, I mean, you can be multiple different nationalities, but Brad is, I mean, he's almost certainly got some Welsh. I'm not sure there's anything else in there.
Yeah, me and him have got the same last name. We're not related. We're both Evanses. So there's certainly Welsh, but I remember I actually did do a DNA thing during lockdown, and I wasn't anywhere near as Welsh as I thought I was. Something like about 19% Welsh or something like that.
Well, my understanding of how these tests are done, and maybe somebody in the comments on YouTube or can email us or in our Patreon forum might know better, but it's done, the percentages that are given are actually matches to that company's pool of DNA from that country, right? So
Correct.
If you get 2% Irish, as Jason Momoa did, that doesn't mean he's 2% Irish. It means he has a 2% match with their gene pool from Ireland.
Yes.
Which is neither conclusive nor implying he actually has any Irish heritage, really. It's just possible.
No, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. It's it's a nice gimmick. I'm sure there's some level of science and fact to it. But yeah, there's I think definitely it's a bit of a a gimmick. Like I say, I'm supposedly I've got some Swedish, Danish, and Norwegian, but I can't find those on my another lockdown activity I did was my family tree. I couldn't find any Swedish, Danish, Norwegian relatives. So
how far did you get back?
I managed to get about 6 generations. I managed to get to late 1700s.
Right, wow.
Yeah, so I did all right with that.
You went pretty deep.
I pretty much found that just all of my family are pretty much just from the Midlands area. That's all I could really find, which makes sense because I suppose it would have been for a bit of geography and history. it was the Industrial Revolution kind of heartland.
Mm-hmm.
And that's obviously where people would have been flocking into. So that makes sense. But yeah, pretty much everything, just West Bromwich. That's
West Brom,
where both sides of my family, hopefully they didn't, interbreed or anything. But yeah, that's where they're both from,
evidence.
both sides.
No evidence there, right? My family. So my mother's done. My mum. Never called her mother in my life. She did it, and we're from Aston. My grandma was born in Aston, but before that we're Scottish. It would seem. Which was very unexpected. We owned I think it was a shoe shop in Edinburgh at one point.
You should go and find it. That was one of the things.
Well, I think we tracked it down on Google Maps. I don't think the building exists anymore, but we found the address.
Yeah, I did a thing where I was trying to find, because I found that a fair few of my, ancestors had run pubs, like whether it was in West Bromwich or Wolverhampton. Went to look them up, and pretty much they're all gone. Yeah, they're all like housing estates or something now.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, that's a shame, because that would have been cool.
Weirdly, a street I used to live in, I lived in East London for about 18 months. On the street that I was on, there was a pub that had been converted into flats, but it still had like the signage. And it was Garrett. My surname was the name of something and Garrett was the name of the brewery. So I asked my mum, and she did a load of research, and we found that one of my ancestors was a maltster, but not a brewery owner.
Well, that's cool. So you can officially now say that beer is in your blood, I guess.
At least malt, yeah.
Malt is in your blood, which Malt Miller will be chuffed with.
Yeah, malt is in my blood, and also sponsors my podcast. So God bless Malt Miller. Yeah. Did you have a look at the comments? Did you find anything fun?
Yeah, so one from it's a long name, Kaveen Drava Soothvan 7838. They said, I was incredibly happy to see a Beer Geeks React upload this week. It truly brings Friday 5pm vibes to the screen, and the dynamic between, this is what we were talking about earlier, Brad's enthusiasm and Johnny's dad vibes is epic. Keep the Beer Reacts videos coming. I liked that specifically because it kind of took the pressure off me when I was getting ready to do the podcast, because I was thinking, Friday 5pm, it's a big vibe. People are used to this. It's a ceremony for some people. So knowing that the video gave people, they scratched the 5pm itch, it took a bit of pressure off me. I don't have
it's already been scratched. That was reassuring, was it? Right.
I don't have to go full Brad. And,
I can't recommend full Brad. I don't think people have seen full Brad. I've seen it on a couple of occasions over 11 years, and it's quite the sight.
I look forward to meeting him and trying to coax out full Brad.
Yeah, trying to coax out. There's one very easy way of doing it, and it's 8% double IPAs. So that was a great comment. I accept the dad vibe. It is kind of YouTube is full of people showing stuff to their dads, and I guess that's where we've landed on this.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite funny actually, because when you did the first one of these, me and Paul were having like a little catch up about future video ideas, and we talked about that one that you'd done, and we said we should do a Beer Geeks React to Beer Geeks React. So we're watching you guys reacting, but then you end up kicking off a chain reaction that you just won't be able to stop. Where does it end?
Yeah, the next beer tuber will pick it up.
Yeah. So yeah, another comment was the one Aram638 said a few years back, my dad bought a DVD of vintage beer ads from the 40s to the early 60s in the USA. It's really funny how they gave the hard sale. Quote, our beer is objectively better because of our quality ingredients and organic mountain water, and statistically more people buy our beer than any other. Even when there was a gimmick like a jingle or a cartoon with literal Soviet spies trying to reverse engineer our capitalist pig dog beer recipes, beer was probably close to water, but at least they presented it in a proper Pilsner glass.
They did, and they the way that they present beer is quite beautiful in these really old adverts.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hugely sexist and reductive and full of lies about quality ingredients and organic mountain water, but the way that the beers looked was beautiful, and actually with a couple of obvious exceptions now, beer is not the hero of any of these adverts.
No.
It's the culture that surrounds it, which is why we wanted to do this playlist, because we thought that we could have some really interesting conversations about kind of why that is.
Yeah, I mean, that Danish, the Carlsberg one where Mads is presenting the Carlsberg. I mean, Carlsberg's never looked so good. That they absolutely smashed that in terms of how it looked. But yeah, I still wouldn't realistically want to drink that.
No, well, yeah, I mean, the Carlsberg Pilsner is no better, really. I actually feel bad saying it now. It happens wherever we go. Once you go somewhere and you meet some of the people behind it, you feel bad about slagging off their beer. But I think just Carlsberg is such a bang average beer.
Yeah.
It's hard to get around that fact. Even if some of the stuff that Carlsberg are doing, and this will all come out in my book in November. There's a whole chapter on Carlsberg, which has an incredible history and has done unspeakably brilliant things for the world, not for the beer industry, but for the world, through their laboratory. Still, just the beer is just shocking.
Yeah. Did you visit the? Because down the road from us, we've got Carlsberg Marston's, so it's obviously the old Banks's brewery. Did you pay that a visit on your research?
not for the book. No.
I've still never been there. But I don't really have any desire to at this point. It kind of feels like Banks's was one of those good old brands that it just feels like they've just taken a wrecking ball to. Like modern beer just has ruined it, I guess. Not to sound too much like old man shouting at clouds.
Well, no, it's fair because, Carlsberg have done a brilliant job in Denmark of protecting their heritage and their history and telling that story and having so much incredible technological innovation going on, but then at the same time they're tearing down British brewing heritage alongside Molson Coors, just decimating it. And it's infuriating, and it's unfair, and it's demoralizing.
Was it Carlsberg that gave the heritage those heritage the Burton Union tanks to Thornbridge? Is it?
Yes,
was that them?
That was them, because they stopped using it at Marston's. I don't know whether it was always the plan or anything, but as far as I know, the story is that Garrett Oliver, Brooklyn Brewery, have a very close tie to Carlsberg. They own shares. Carlsberg owns shares in Brooklyn, UK, or I can't quite work it out. Garrett Oliver said, no, you can't just sort of, because the old Burton Union system is just outside, or was just outside what was the brewery museum. Yeah. It's just left in the rain. So thankfully Garrett Oliver stepped in, and Thornbridge were interested in taking it, and they've been brewing on it. And we're hoping in our series Keep Cask Alive 2, we're hoping to cover that, not necessarily that story, but cover the Burton Union as part of that content. So we're hopefully going to show it in action. But they're only brewing on it, I think, maybe once a month, so it depends if everyone lines up for us.
Well, at least some measure of good was done, at least there, with Garrett Oliver intervening.
Yeah, best of a bad situation.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the comments. I also picked out that great comment from Arum 638. The other one I wanted to flag, because I didn't know this, I haven't seen it, but Kev Jones 5047 says the Bud ad is ripping a segment from Woody Allen's Everything You Want to Know About Sex. Tony Randall in Charge of the Brain, Burt Reynolds in Sex Control, etc. So perhaps Inside Out ripped off from Woody Allen.
Yeah, I guess there is that.
There's generally no such thing as a new idea these days, so that wouldn't surprise me.
That's it. There's no such thing as a new idea or a unique YouTube video interview with a brewery. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that was one of the bits of advice I gave you, was like, try to find an angle going in to a brewery, but it's tough at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's it. I mean, we've got next week we're filming with Rivington and Track, and we've just been that's on 2 separate days, and we've just been trying to think of the angle and kind of grinding something out, because obviously we're very aware that you guys did a very good video with Track last year where you kind of focused on gold tops, and I think it was last year. Yeah.
Maybe 2 years now.
Yeah, but we're aware that when we do that and we're kind of going into areas where they've already been trod on, that we need to kind of make it so that where there is a crossover of an audience that watches both channels, that they'll choose to watch both videos, rather than just thinking, well, there's nothing in that one that's coming out now that I won't already know from, Johnny's video on the craft beer channel. So yeah, it's about thinking on your toes in that respect, and it was a good bit of advice.
It's an interesting thing. I think I've talked about this a couple of times, but when we started, it's me and Brad running around with some cheap DSLRs, and generally we were going on trips that were paid for by breweries with other writers, and it was really interesting to see, because we'd all come away with roughly similar content. And, that's fine. We're writing for different people, and that's the inevitability of it. But as a videographer, you only have one chance to sort of find that angle and go down that road. Whereas as a writer, and I do lots of writing as well, you walk away and you think about it for a week, and you reread your notes and you edit them down, and you play around with them, and you play with timelines. You can put stuff in different orders and all this kind of stuff, and you can't do that with video, so you have to go in with a much stronger plan than you would if you've just got a notebook and you're going to write about it later.
Yes.
So it's a tough gig going somewhere where the story's been told before, because you have to plan out in advance rather than hope that something cool happens once you get there.
Yeah. Do you ever tend to edit your videos and then leave them for, like, I don't know, a week or so, just to go back to them with fresh eyes and then think, okay, I can now... Because the editing process is obviously one of the most intensive things. What I tend to do is I'll just edit out a sync cut of the interview as it was after I've done a first pass, and then I'll go back like a week or so later and just be like, right, I don't think that's necessary now. I don't think that's necessary. Do you have a similar process when editing yours?
Yes and no. We certainly used to work that way, and it used to be very much like we do a main interview, put the B-roll on top to hide the edits, and maybe shift things around a little bit. And that it used to be that I'd then send that to Brad and say, "What do you think of this?" And he'd either have some suggestions or be like, "No, I think it's right." Usually, I message him going, "How do we make this shorter? Because this is 40 minutes long." Increasingly now, we sort of map it out with the brewers. So we'll be like, "Well, we want to talk to 3 different people in 3 different locations. These are the angles we want to hit with those people," and just try to create a bit of structure beforehand, because it just makes A, the edit a bit easier, and B, we realise that we got better retention if you're not sat in the same place, looking at the same cameras and faces. So we had a slight shift up, but we still, I'll still edit ideally a week in advance and let Brad have a look.
That's one of the things that we did recently with when we shot at Daya. Like, it was nice to do and meet the brewers on, but we planned out in advance that we would shoot in 3 different areas, because we wanted the angle with the Daya video was we want to see their mixed firm stuff, because it's not as widely spoke about as their hazy stuff. So we knew that we wanted to see the main tap room, the brewery, and then the mixed firm tap room. So we kind of just structured it so that we could have like a walkthrough of those. So rather than just being like, for instance, like our Baron video where it was just us sat outside on the bench chatting to Jack, it was 20-25 minutes of going through to 3 different locations. So the viewer then is just it's more visually engaging for them, and feels a little less like a slog. But then I think there is also that element of it's nice when you get these comments, and I'm sure you guys get them on yours. People say it's like, it's fine. I don't care that it's necessarily that long. I will watch something that's 25 minutes long, and that's nice. Yeah. It's reassuring, because so many times I'm like you just said there, how do we make it shorter is one of the most common questions that I find asking myself and also Paul. Yeah,
it's a real. I mean, we've gone back and forth on it, and you can see in the average length of our videos, like our videos used to be 10, 15 minutes long, absolute max. And then we had all of those comments from people. So we went, okay, screw it. Let's go 25, 30. hit some that were 35 minutes. We did our feature-length documentaries. And to be fair, those have performed very well. People are not put off. If they see 90 minutes, they'll put the time aside. They'll, I guess, assume, given the work we've done before, that it's going to be worth it.
Yeah.
But we've come back down again. So unless it's a brewery profile, we try not to go over 20. So if it's just me and Brad doing what we do in the studio or a location, then we try to keep it under 20. And we found that that's better viewed without losing anything for the people at home. But we have considered like director's cuts and stuff like that for Patreons. But it doesn't sound like a lot of work, but going back to those old files and stretching them out and fixing the audios and the visuals for all of it.
No, for sure. It would
be tough. And I know, they probably sit there and just watch, the unedited version, but just sort of something in me, I have to be, I don't want to put anything out there that isn't production quality, and we fall short of that still. But it's something I always try to aspire to.
We've had the same. We had to do like a reshoot of Hops in Focus Simcoe. We had a version of it that was Alligator Tugboat and a Nothing Bound beer that was a single hop Simcoe. And for my sins, I forgot to set my microphone to record. So we filmed the video, and then I was like looking, maybe I can save it in the edit. I was running it through all manner of like, different AI kind of enhancers to try and make my audio sound. I just said to Paul, like, we may as well just reshoot this. We've got the script that we've kind of rehearsed and gone through it once. Let's just find another 2 beers and let's just do it again. Because like I say, it just fell well below the production quality that we would have wanted to put out. And I was like, fuck it. Let's do it again.
We've definitely spiked the odd bit of content because of tech. We've also spiked it because we haven't performed. We're not sort of happy with it. And memorably, one video got spiked because I look back on it and we were like, we're drunk. And you know it. You definitely know it.
Yeah, we've done one of those with like a podcast. We shot 2 episodes of a podcast in one evening, about an hour long. And obviously the first episode comes out on a different week to the second one. And although we're in the same location, you can tell in the second episode that comes a few weeks later, we're more lubricated. Yeah. And it's a lot more chaotic, which isn't necessarily, it doesn't make for consistent listening experiences or viewing experiences. But
no, I mean, it can go either way, can't it? It can be kind of joyous, and it can be a nightmare.
Yeah.
From a viewer's perspective, to feel, because you can immediately feel out of the joke, like you're the sober one in the room, and we've worked very hard to not make people feel like that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Right. Anyway, that's about all we've got time for. We could have chatted forever, but we're coming up to an hour. We'll have to call time on that. I hope everybody at home has enjoyed that conversation, mostly about YouTube, it turns out. And if you want to go subscribe to Planet Beer TV, there'll be a link in the pod description as well, right next to those tickets for Love and Beer. So hit both those links.
I was going to tee you up for that. I was going to say, so Johnny, where do I get my tickets for the Love and Beer Festival?
Well, I'll tell you again. It's in the pod description, just down below.
And is there still full day tickets going?
There are
I think
still
me and Paul
tickets.
will come down for the full day, I think.
Well, I look forward to napping with you in between the 2 sessions. You can grab those tickets. Please do subscribe to Planet Beer TV. They're making some great content, and it's been, really heartening and exciting to see another YouTube channel like going all out broadcast, getting out into the world and making documentaries about beer. Long may it continue. All the best with it.
Thank you.
Yeah, otherwise, next week is a video all about the things that I've learned through drinking too many beers blind. 155 different beers it totals. And then Brad will be back for the podcast on Friday at 5 p.m. next week. Love and Beer. The Bubble and Friday 5 p.m. podcasts are brought to you by the nerds behind YouTube's craft beer channel. You can watch over 400 mini documentaries at youtube.com/the craft beer channel. And if you love what we do, support us via Patreon and get access to merchandise and our amazing Discord forum, a positive and welcoming space for everyone who loves beer, food and homebrewing. Love and Beer.